Well, let's hope we can clue them in. It's just basic math, and I know you math and I math and a few people math. This is simple. This is mathematically unworkable, full stop, and somebody ought to be doing something about it, we would hope. And the thing that gets under my skin, of course, is that, like, here's just an example from my state of Massachusetts. These people saw their property tax values increase by 135%, and then their taxes, quadruple, and it's terrible, right? So, but this means that what's happening is we're taxing unrealized gains. And of course, there's a big hue and cry whenever somebody says, maybe we should tax the unrealized gains in Bitcoin or stocks. And immediately people grok, that is a terrible idea. That's a surefire way to ruin a market. But we accepted on real estate, like taxing unrealized gains to that gentleman in Ohio holding that sign up, the 84-year-old guy. He's now paying more in taxes than it cost to build his house in the first place, right? So this is happening, and we see in this poor gentleman here. But in Illinois, at least the state senator said, well, hey, how about if people who are 30-year or more homeowners, so good luck getting to that milestone, but maybe we can eliminate property taxes for people who paid in 30 years. But there is a movement afoot right now, I think some pushback, hopefully, for people understanding that taxing unrealized gains is absolutely, when did this start, Mitch? How did we get here? This is absolutely, may I say, un-American, and it's immoral.
There's a high probability we're going to the U.S. Supreme Court. I believe what will happen, and I could be wrong, but it is clear that the Texas Supreme Court is, as of a few months ago, on our side with regard to rulings that they have made. Mm-hmm. However, when this case shows up on their desk because of what the Fort Worth Court of Appeals did, should the Texas Supreme Court take the same approach as the Fort Worth Court of Appeals, we're going to the U.S. Supreme Court, and this whole thing is going to come to shreds. And the whole house of cards will come down, because I'm going to end up with two depositions. I'm going to get the deposition of Glenn Hagar, who I stated publicly I want as a state comptroller, and I'm going to get Don Spencer's deposition. With those two depositions, we'll prove irrefutable fraud across the state of Texas. But this situation is a mirror image across the United States. In other words, everything we have shows what they did, how they did it, who did it, and it all stacks. So the problem with the Supreme Court is that in the 16th Amendment, it is clear they don't have the right to tax anything other than an income. You cannot tax an unrealized gain. You cannot tax property. The states did it and got away with it because nobody had the foresight to sit down with an amortization schedule even then and say, what if? And it's not the what if they can't pay. The question would have been at that time, what if the value as established by the school district isn't real, right? In other words, the ability to create the fraud was never calculated or not thought of, or perhaps by intent it was. But as time morphed, it became real clear that this was a cash cow for the school districts. This was a cash cow for the school district unions. This is what kept them afloat. And the truth of the matter is that's why you've got so many bad teachers in the system. This is a ramification of that. You wouldn't have these bad teachers. You wouldn't have these failing school districts. You wouldn't have schools closing, because if they used proper accounting in the first place, none of this would have happened. It's the fact that you let it fester uncontrolled. But now it's gotten to the point where it's uncontrolled and the debt is uncontrollable. The debt must be sliced, and the debt's got to come down at a minimum 70 cents on the dollar. I really think when all's said and done and you realize what's going on, given the reduced population of the students in these school districts, I think you're going to end up pretty close to that 13 cents on the dollar in terms of what the real value is. But why bother with the 13 cents? File them into bankruptcy and shove them down the toilet.
So the 16th Amendment, I mean, this is